Hi, this is Roger from Kinetics, and as you might see, our today's topic in our series What Every Maker Should Have is of course wire stripping. I've brought from my home lab some of the tools that I've, well, not collected but accumulated over the decades from my childhood times where, for example, this one is from, up to, well, let's say newer times. All of these tools are more or less useful, and all of them are more or less a way to strip wires. But we'll go through them piece by piece, step by step, and in the end we will see which one of these is really useful. In the end, it will boil down to one or two recommendations from, at least from my experience. So I've collected some of the cables that you usually have to do with in the lab as a maker, and we'll try every method and every wire stripping tool with these test wires. And the simplest of all wire stripping tools are simply your fingernails, but it sometimes works depending, like this time, depending on the sharpness or hardness of your fingernails. I would not recommend what I did as a child, that is using your teeth, because in the end you will have to go to the dentist or to the orthodontist. So don't use your teeth, but fingernails are sometimes the simplest and quickest way to strip a wire, like you can see here. If the insulation is not too hard, then your fingernails will do. And fingernails are a tool that if they break, they repair themselves. But as soon as it gets, as the insulation gets stronger, well, this one still works, but I'm really afraid that now even my fingernails will break at some time. So there's a limit to this, but for thin wires or thin cables, your fingernails already will do. And next is your Swiss knife or any other knife, but we here in Europe use, of course, our Swiss knife. And this is the Cyber tool from Victorinox, which I'll present to you in another part of this series about what every maker should have. Now, I'm not a friend of wire stripping with knives. You should do this perhaps in a MacGyver situation when you absolutely have nothing at hand. But you see, well, it's not the best of all methods. But if you don't have any other tool at hand and you really have to strip a wire, then a sharp knife will do. But you'll see it's not very professional and not very, well, not very exact. So the other wires are nearly useless. Here these single strands from a modular cable are, even the fingernail method doesn't work anymore, because some isolations are so slippery that not only your fingernails, but we'll later see that even some wire stripping tools, they don't get the insulation off. So first method is your fingernails. In an emergency situation, use your Swiss knife or any other knife. And now let's go over to the real tools that are made for wire stripping. So I've cleaned up a little bit. Next is also a tool I bought in my youth. This is an adjustable wire cutter, a wire stripper. It has one big disadvantage. You first of all have to try out the right setting, and let's try the first setting. Yeah, that was about the right one. The disadvantage is not only that you first have to try out the right setting, but for each different kind of wire you have to try again, and this has served me some time in my youth, and you already can see how old it is. But today I would not recommend it, except if you're only cutting wires, relatively thick wires, because you can see how large the opening can get. And you always cut wires of the same diameter, then this might be useful for you. But in the electronics lab, I would say it's nearly totally unusable. And next I bought also as a youth was the first automatic wire stripper, and you will see this one for really a few dollars or euros in every cheap electronics store. For me, until now, I did not find out how to set how to make the right setting. For me, it's totally useless. Then please give me a hint if you know how to set this thing really to the right pressure, and I'll show you that for me it doesn't work. Here you see it cuts into the wire, but it doesn't strip the wire. Let's try another strand. Perhaps we have more luck. Yeah, what you see is it has cut through the insulation, but also cut through the strands, and cut nearly half of the strands. So this one is cheap, but I would recommend it to absolutely nobody. The second best thing I bought was this medium priced tool from I think it's a Vicon. This is already better. Let's prepare again some wires for an example strip, and let's see what it does. It has, as most automatic wire stripping tools, you can set the distance of the wire, how far you want to strip the isolation here, and you don't have to make any other setting. And okay, it has stripped the wire relatively good with this one. Let's try another thin braided wire, and it also does this one relatively well. Next one, let's see how it works with this one. Okay, it's the strip action is quite okay. Now a thicker one. Yeah, it also makes a relatively okay strip action. Here it has drawn out some strands of the braided wire, and now comes the acid test. Can it cut, or can it strip the insulation of this modular cable? And first attempt it cannot. Second attempt, yeah, this one it did relatively well. Let's try again. Okay, so this is relatively good. In my memory it was worse. Now this one it did not, so it has about 60% success or 50% success here with this. For me, this is always the acid test. A very slippery, thin, or the cable is not slippery, but the insulation is slippery. Slippery, thin, braided wire or Litz wire. That's really the worst or the hardest example for a wire stripper, and this one is from my memory still more difficult, but well, first it does. Okay, second strip. Okay, yeah, it's so the tool is relatively okay. Let's find some other wires to strip. Until now it did every single one, even this one. Yes, it is the first one that is recommended, and you can see I already have this one for quite some time, seen how dirty it has become. So that's also from my hobby lab. But finally I settled to this one from Knipex, or Knipex as you English speaking people probably will pronounce it, and we'll before we'll show it, we'll clean up a little bit and prepare the wires again for cutting. Now the Knipex tool, first of all, it's very ergonomic. It's really a pleasure to work with, even though even this is not 100% successful at all stripping actions. By the way, for this modular cables, you cannot use neither the side cutter method and also not these automatic strippers. For flat modular cables, you need the right tool with which you can cut and handle modular cables, which you know from your computer as Ethernet cable or from your cable telephone. Okay, let's take off a little bit more of the insulation so that we have longer wires. And let's still prepare here a few wires to strip. So now let's see how this one will do. It's let's see how it's rated for 0.2 millimeter. Probably you won't be able to see it. 0.2 square millimeters up to 6 square millimeters diameter, which is 24 to 10 American wire gauge, or however you pronounce that. And now let's try this one. As you see, I'm a left-handed person, so when I use it, the Knipex vanishes, but that shouldn't matter. And it's really, every time I'm using this one, I don't want to use anything else. And this is something that quite often happens with the Knipex. It leaves the insulation at the end, but that's no problem. You just can, it's sometimes even better to have it left at the end so it doesn't fall into a device, so you can put it apart by hand. And it's, for me, it's when I would say 10 is perfect, then I would give this wire stripper a 9 out of 10. And now the acid test with the modular cable, and I already can predict what happens. That's this. With the modular cable, it strips the insulation, but it leaves the deisolated part on the insulation. That's the compromise between if it would have too hard, too great pressure, then there's the danger that some wires are cut off. If it has too little pressure, then it won't cut through the wire, and the the best compromise is to have the pressure just when it's just exact. It doesn't have still enough grip to draw it always off, but that's no problem. And as I told you, sometimes it's even better so that the insulation doesn't fall into a device when you wire strip. But you can put it aside by hand. Now let's see if it gets 6 out of 6. Yes. 2, 3. Again, the insulation remains here, but the strip is perfect. The stripping action. Yes. And again. Yes. Okay, now that was my fault that I drew out the strand. And yes. Okay, and now again a very difficult to strip this ribbon cable, and again it did make a cut, but here you have to really finish the stripping action with your fingernails. This one it stripped perfectly, and here again we have the insulation still left on. So as you can see, it did everything quite well. And another advantage is if ever your cutting blades are not sharp anymore, they are exchangeable, and by request we can deliver replacement blades. And so this is the one I really recommend. By the way, these 3 ones, out of which you know this one I don't recommend, they also have a side cutter, but I never use this one. Here you usually have it near the grip. Here, let's see where we have it here. Yeah, it has also here still a little side cutter, and the Kinetics has it here on the top. So anyway, what's the what conclusion do we have? I only recommend, if you want to buy one tool that you keep forever, I would recommend the Kinetics. The Vicon is not very much cheaper, but so you don't save very much money by buying the Vicon. And this is, I would say, at least one grade better than the Vicon. The Vicon does its job, but as I told you, if you want to have a tool that you keep forever, it will be the Kinetics. So that's my recommendation from, well, let's say 30-40 years of wire stripping with any kind of tool that is available and that can cut and strip. In the end, I only work with this one. So after settling, at least in my opinion, with the Kinetics automatic wire strippers, there are still some related special tools which I'll present to you in another video. That is this kind of coax stripper. Then you just saw this crimping tools for modular cable, which is 3 tools in one: cutting, stripping the insulation off, and crimping. This is a standard tool, so we don't have to say very much about it. But quite interesting is this stripper for enameled copper wire. This is something I don't want to miss anymore. when working with annealed copper wire. So these two tools I'll present to you in another video. And well, that was it for today. I hope you liked it. Let's collect again what we have seen all and what's more or less useful. And you see there are more than one methods to strip wires. But in the end, except for special situations like MacGyver situations, either use the Vicon, but just spend a few bucks more and you get the really semi-professional Knipex tool, and it will last a lifelong. So that was it. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Any comments, place in the YouTube comments, and of course if you have alternatives or suggestions, please visit our forum because that's the right place for it. So until next time, bye from Kanka Labs.